Welcome to my American History Notes, where I discuss conclusions I've drawn from studying American history. It's rather surface. It's a survey. You'll want to dig deeper for subjects that interest you to be conversant in American history. Might not agree with what I'm saying. You might even be offended by it. But if that spurs you on to study on your own and have your own conclusions, then that means I've been a success. I just want you to study American history. So I'm a Bible believing Christian, so obviously I'm going to have some different viewpoints than you are, and different viewpoints than a lot of Bible believing Christians, obviously. So we'll begin. We're talking about Eisenhower. Now, with regard to Senator Joseph McCarthy, Eisenhower finally opposed him when he accused the U.S. Army of being infiltrated by communist agents, resulting in McCarthy being censured by the Senate. Eisenhower authorized the CIA sponsoring a Britain funded coup which overthrew Prime Minister Mossadegh in Iran in 1953. He authorized the CIA sponsored overthrow of the Guatemalan government in 1954. Due to new papers being released under the Freedom of Information Act over the last 20 years, this coup is worthy of independent study. America enjoyed an era of unprecedented prosperity during Eisenhower's administration, which makes older white Americans, particularly, remembered as a sort of golden age. He used his great skills at conciliation and winning agreements with the Democratic controlled Congress with the special help of Democratic Majority Leader of the Senate, Lyndon Johnson of Texas. President Eisenhower accomplished his presidency in spite of suffering a heart attack, stroke, and emergency surgery of an inflamed intestine. Before the 1956 election, Hungary rebelled against their Soviet masters, whom they had been turned over to by FDR. They begged the U.S. for help. We did nothing while Russian tanks crushed the uprising. This was accomplished because we needed Russia's help in arranging a ceasefire when the satellite state of Russia, Egypt, under its leader Nasser, Gamal Abdel Nasser, nationalized and took over the Suez Canal, resulting in France, Great Britain, and Israel invading Egypt. In this action, Eisenhower joined Russia in condemning the actions of our three allies. In 1957, Russia shocked the world by sending up Sputnik, the first man made space satellite. The space age began right then. American prestige was crushed. We questioned the value of our educational programs, but a year later, we launched Explorer 1 and the space race was on. At the request of the president, Congress in 1957 approved the Eisenhower Doctrine, which authorized the president to use armed force to aid any nation or group of nations against any country controlled by communists. Lebanon was the first such country to ask for help, and he sent in the U.S. Marines to help them. When Red China threatened to invade Taiwan in 1958, he sent the U.S. Navy to protect nationalist China. He personally got more involved in directing foreign affairs after the death of John Foster Dulles, his Secretary of State. Eisenhower and Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev met in the U.S. in 1959, and Eisenhower was invited to Russia for a quote summit conference. This planned meeting was scrapped when a U-2 spy plane flown by Gary Powers was shot down over Russia. These flights had been admitted as having gone on for 4 years. Khrushchev demanded that Eisenhower publicly and personally apologize, but he refused, so the invitation to Russia was withdrawn. As Eisenhower was exponentially growing the federal government, his need for staff increased, and an executive office building was constructed across the street from the White House, connected by a tunnel. Eisenhower supported his vice president, Richard M. Nixon, for next president. The final setback in his administration was the overthrow of the government of Cuba, led by a communist, Fidel Castro, in 1959, who overturned the government of Fulgencio Batista, a ruthless dictator we had supported. Castro turned out to be even more ruthless dictator, but now the totalitarian cult of personality was mingled, as it usually was in communism, with an almost religious ideology of atheism and the God of the state. In January 1961, Eisenhower's government broke off diplomatic relations with Cuba. Eisenhower left office at 70, the oldest president up to that time. He gave a speech decrying the industrial military complex that he had helped create as a warning to America that rough times would lie ahead if this shadow government behind the government were to get out of control, which it has. So, in any event, we'll continue from there. Next time, we'll talk about John F. Kennedy, and the Richard Nixon, things like that. So, anyway, I look forward to talking to you again. I hope you'll study American history.